Yes, sir.
Welcome everybody to Des Moines City Hall. Prior to the start of our city council meeting, we're going to do a couple of things, and one of them is all about Italian Heritage Month. Now, I see that Dave Miller is probably going to be the one to accept, but if everybody who is going to participate in that event, we'd like to have you all come up, and we'll ask Dave to say a couple of words and tell us what's going on, and then we'll read our proclamation. Come on, everybody, come on up.
Don't look so surprised, Dave. Come on. You hear him. Travel with my girls.
You put it wherever you want it.
Good afternoon. David Miller with the Italian American Cultural Center of Iowa. Pleased to be here this afternoon. I'd like to introduce our director. Pat Civitot has been with us many, many years. We offer a lot of programs at the center. If you haven't been down to the center, we would encourage you to stop by and take a look at what we have for the Italian heritage. We're all very, very proud of it. Pat?
I bless you all. I'll learn Italian.
Quick and easy. There you go.
Can you run the council meeting too? Hopefully that'll. At any rate, our proclamation reads as follows, and it generally apologizes to everybody. It reads pretty much the same every year, but obviously the year has, we have one more year under our belt, right, Pat? All right. Whereas in 1492, Christopher Columbus, a man of Italian heritage, made his first voyage to America. And the first Columbus Day celebration was held in 1792 in New York City, the 300th anniversary of the Italian man's landing in America. And whereas President Franklin D. Roosevelt proclaimed Columbus Day as a national holiday, and to date, it is the only day on which all Pan Americans join in celebration. And whereas Columbus Day is a legal federal holiday throughout the United States, and this year will be celebrated on October 8, 2018. Italian Heritage Month will be celebrated throughout the city during the entire month of October. Our annual observance will be at the Columbus Monument on the south lawn of the state capitol on that same day. Now, therefore, I, the Mayor of the City of Des Moines, on behalf of the City Council and all of our citizens of Des Moines, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2018 as Italian Heritage Month, in honor of all Italian Americans in the city of Des Moines and across America. Let's give them a great big hand. Everybody stay up here a minute.
Come forward, Pat.
I want you to introduce introduce those people, please.
Yes, would you please? As our director, and I'd like you to hold that. She's a little bashful at first, just at first.
Thank you. I would like to introduce, if I could, please, Gracie Kirkman, Therese Reardon, and Darlene Cross. And we thank you, Mayor County, and you too, David.
Very much. Thank you all for the work you do. All right, wait a minute. I'll get it again.
I am Italian too. Don't let Miller fool you.
All right, the second thing that we're going to do before we start our council meeting is we'd like to bring up all those that are sort of part of what we call Manufacturing Day. And we'd like to have Miriam Erickson Brown. Miriam, are you, come on up. And do you have a group that is part of your, let's have everybody come on up. We can't have Miriam up here by herself. I mean, this is going to, you know, the two of us will make a nice photo, but, you know. What you want to step up and tell everybody what it's about, and then we'll, if you want to introduce whoever. All right, Miriam? You're going to do it? All right.
Yes. So Manufacturing Day is typically October 5th, and Manufacturing Month is the month of October. This is the first time City of Des Moines has done a proclamation, so we're really excited to recognize our manufacturers. We've got 3 represented tonight. We have Miriam Erickson Brown from Anderson Erickson Dairy. They've been in business since 1930, and they make over 300 dairy products. From DZ Manufacturing, we have Kelly Gallagher, who's the president, and Denise Waddingham, who's the regional sales and corporate relations manager. They have been making truck accessory parts since 1977, so nice long history there too as well. And we have Lester Brewer, who is the vice president of Titan International, and they've been in business for over 125 years, making all kinds of off-the-road tires and wheels for ag, construction, forestry, and mining equipment. So a nice diverse group for our first celebration of Manufacturing Day.
And I note also for DZ, they I understand produce stuff for Chrysler, Ford, GM, Honda, Nissan, Subaru, and Toyota. So they're not just doing it for one group. They're working for everybody. So good job. So quickly, our proclamation for Manufacturing Day is as follows. Manufacturing is a critical component of Iowa's economy, and more than 6,000 manufacturing firms are operating in the state of Iowa. And whereas manufacturing contributes over $28 billion annually to the state of Iowa's economy, and whereas manufacturing innovation is an important driver in the city of Des Moines' growth. And whereas the city of Des Moines recognized the importance of a thriving manufacturing sector which works to fuel economic growth and provides quality jobs. And whereas Des Moines' prosperity depends on the education and vocational opportunities that align with manufacturers' skills, labor needs. And whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed the National Manufacturing Day each year since 2014 to encourage manufacturing, and whereas the City of Des Moines congratulates all our manufacturing companies for their contributions to the long-term stability of local and national economies. Now, therefore, I, the mayor of the City of Des Moines, on behalf of our City Council and all of our citizens of Des Moines, do hereby proclaim October 5th, 2018 as Manufacturing Day in Des Moines, and encourage all of our residents to join in this observance and celebrate all these great manufacturers in our city. So let's give them a great big hand. All right, we're going to take a picture.
Thank you, Mayor.
We'll get right up here, everybody here. Thank you. Have a great day. Appreciate it. You bet. We will start our city council meeting shortly. So, good afternoon, everybody. Prior to getting started, I know that our Councilmember Coleman's getting warmed up, ready to go. But prior to him doing it, we have some special visitors here in the audience, and I'd just like to, while we're not going to introduce every one of them, I want to have everybody kind of, I just spent a little bit of time with them talking about what's going on in and around the world. These are part of what we call the International Visitor Leadership Program through the U.S. State Department, and we talked about social, political, economic issues for Europe and what we're doing here in Des Moines. And if everybody kind of stand up, and what a great group they were to. So thank you all for being here. You're going to probably wait through this whole thing. You want to see how we operate government here in Des Moines, right? So we'll show them how to do it, right? Yeah. So prior to our start, we're going to have a special message from our own City Council member, Chris Coleman. Mr. Coleman, would you like to have a stand up? Right? And so all those that would participate, we'd ask you to stand up at this time.
Ask you to join me in a moment of reflection. As the summer winds down, we express our thanks to one another and to God for the wonderful summer that we've had, the good weather, the fun times. But we especially thank God and all those that work for the city for the commitment of our city staff, those that keep our parks clean and the grass mowed, that fill the potholes and keep our streets running, those that climb into the sewer and pay the bills, those that help us hire the best. We're a lucky city in that we have tremendous public servants, and today I just want to take a moment to thank them for their commitment. They work for a little less they could make other places. They work a little bit harder, and as a community, we're indebted to them. Thank you. Probably shouldn't have said that.
All right. Madam Clerk, I see that it's 4:31. Let's call the meeting to order, and I'll ask you to take roll, please.
County.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Boson.
Here.
Ray.
Here.
Westergaard.
Here.
Mandelbaum.
Here.
Gatto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Item number 2 is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended. Quickly, we have a couple of consent items. 4W was withdrawn. Their inspections are incomplete. 16A is corrected. Roll call. Regular agenda items 35 through 52. 41B is corrected. The roll call and council communication. Item 41C, D, and E has been withdrawn by the city manager, and Mr. Manager will go over that when we get to that item. Are there any other amendments or corrections? Seeing none, could we have a motion for the balance? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item 3 is approving our consent agenda. Tonight, these items are items 3 through 34, and these are routine items, and they're generally enacted with one roll call vote, unless either a member of our city council or a member of the audience has to have one pulled for further clarification or discussion on a particular item. Item 4H, Councilmember Coleman is voting no. Item 8, Councilmember Westergaard wishes to speak. Item 19, Councilmember Westergaard wishes to speak on that one as well. And item 6, I vote no.
Mayor, could I add item 16 and pull that as well?
Item 16 to speak?
To speak. Yep.
Okay.
I'll move the rest of it, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Does anybody in the audience have any other items they would like to have pulled? Again, items 33 through 34. All right, seeing none.
7 yes.
All right, that takes us to item 8. Item 8 is a public improvement. This one is approving and authorizing the execution of Iowa Department of Transportation IDOT agreement for East Douglas Avenue widening from East 42nd Street to East 56th Street. Council communication number 18-477. Councilmember Westergaard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just pulled this up because I just want to emphasize my thanks for the improvements that we're receiving in Ward 2. We have a huge Hubble Avenue reconstruction project going on. I realize that number 8 is just the very beginning stages of a nearly $8 million project that will widen from East 42nd all the way out to East 56th. There's going to be some traffic tie-ups. Traffic is going to be slow on the east side, and I just ask that everybody bear with us and use our best manners, and we'll get through it, because when it's finished, we're going to have just an awesome roadway. So thanks to everyone who helped make this happen. And with that, I'll move item 8.
And Linda, I just want to add, when you guys get done with all the materials over there, could you transport some over to West Douglas so we can get some work done over there?
Yes.
Thank you.
7 yes.
All right, next item is item 16. This is setting a date of hearing. This particular one will be to approve a preliminary term of agreement for urban renewal development agreement with Bell Avenue Properties, Inc. for the new construction of an office and production building for the Waldinger Corporation, Council Communication number 18-476. Under that, there will be a hearing on the vacation of a roadway easement for Southwest Connector right-of-way located east of Southwest 63rd Street and conveyance to Bell Avenue Properties, Inc. For $170,950. That hearing will be October 8th. And B under that will be on the adoption of an urban renewal plan for the Southwest Gateway Urban Renewal Area. And that hearing will be October 22nd of this year. Councilmember Mandelbaum.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say a few words about how excited I am about this project. And this is we'll have, I think, a few times to talk about it since we're just setting the hearing, but this is really a great success story. It's a business that has grown in Des Moines, that has expanded and is now looking to at their next steps and how they consolidate some of their operations and get it all in one facility. And it's a great story. I've had the opportunity to be out there a couple of times and in particular work closely. A large chunk of what Waldinger does is related to their energy services and energy efficiency efforts. And I've been very engaged on the energy efficiency side of work in the city. Councilmember Gray and I are co-leading the City Energy Task Force, and Waldinger's been an active participant in those conversations. And so having multiple things sort of come together, this is a great project. And actually, council members Coleman and Gatto and I were out there a little earlier today learning about the energy services side and seeing how it all comes together. So really looking forward to seeing this project keep moving. And with that, I'll move items 16, 16A, and B. And if anyone else has anything to add, feel free.
Well,
I'll
we'll
just
talk
join
about
you
it
in
again
saying
in
it's an
October.
impressive operation, and I think very few people understand the scope of its leadership in the industry here and around the country. They have 31 locations, I think they're providing service to. It's an impressive operation.
Yeah.
7 yes.
Okay, also on setting date of hearing, item 19 is on the proposed connection fee ordinance for Little 4 Mile Trunk Sewer System benefited district. That will also be October 22nd of 18, Council Communication number 18-468. Councilmember Westergaard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out that I've been working on this since before I was even elected. I've been saying, why don't we have sewers? And with this, I know we're just setting the date of hearing, but this is going to allow further development on the northeast part of our city. We've got some land that was annexed a few years ago. Now we can actually do something that will have sewers in place. So I just wanted to point that out and say thank you. We're going to set the date of hearing. I know there will be more to come on it. So with that, I'll move item 19.
Good job.
Seven yes.
All right, let's note it's 4:39 and we complete the consent agenda. That moves us to item 35, which is an ordinance first consideration. 35 is amending Chapter 114 of the Municipal Code regarding traffic regulation changes for the installation of traffic signals at East 42nd Street and Hubble Avenue. Council Communication number 18-488. A is a final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by our city manager and requires 6 votes. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to make comment on this one? Seeing none.
I would move item 35 and 35A. This is a very nice change. I go through this intersection about 4 times a day, and it's been a long time in coming. I know that we ran into a few snags there a couple of years ago, but thankfully the city and everybody continued to work with the property owners, and we're there. They haven't turned on the lights yet, but it looks like everything's ready to go. It looks wonderful, so thank you.
Seven yes.
Item 36 is amending ordinance number 15,678 to correct a portion of a legal description to vacate a portion of the north-south alley and the east-west alley adjacent to 1417 Walnut Street. We'll ask if there's anybody in the audience who would like to make comment on this. Vacation at 1417 Walnut Street. Seeing none.
I'll move item 36, and we're going to need to waive the second and third. I'll waive the remaining readings as well. What?
Seven yes.
Okay. Item 35 is a communication report. This one is a request from Deborah Franklin to speak regarding organizing for action support for gun reform measures and increased police protection. Deborah?
Yes, my name is Deborah Franklin, 1063 40th Street. I proudly stand here today representing former President Barack Obama. He was a community organizer. That's what we do, and he currently leads our group. We did a petition. We live in a neighborhood, and everybody can see this. The vast majority of the shootings occurred in our direct neighborhood last year, and it continues to be an issue. So I'm just going to go ahead and read what we're asking. Organizing for Action, Drake Neighborhood Group joins with the Des Moines Public Schools in asking for reform to battle school shootings. Reform would battle school shootings. Des Moines School Board members are seeking the following gun reform measures: banning the manufacture, sale, purchase, and possession and use of assault weapons and large capacity ammunition cartridges, except those needed for military and law enforcement. Charging all federal agencies with the task of reducing the number of gun-related injuries and deaths. Requiring states and federal agencies to collect whatever data necessary to track, monitor, and prevent gun violence. Officials also want school-focused gun violence prevention measures, extending the perimeter of gun-free school zones, funding programs to educate students and families about the risk of firearms, funding and supporting counselors, psychologists, and social workers. In addition, we as neighbors are also asking for more police or other types of protection within our neighborhood and at the several schools within our neighborhood. As the attached map clearly displays, the vast majority of the gun violence occurring in Des Moines is occurring in our immediate neighborhood. Our students deserve this extra protection while at school. Our neighborhoods need to be safe places for our students to return to when not at school. We are demanding to receive more protection in our neighborhood. Just some personal stories. I also am a sub for the Des Moines School District, and just last spring, I was in a classroom and I heard someone scream, "He's got a gun." I looked out the window, the door was closed, and I saw a teacher running down the hall, and all the students looked at me, and I'm like, what do we do? And they said, we get against the wall, so that they can't see us. I mean, it's really bad. So we're asking for some help on this issue. And our neighborhood is the neighborhood that's being impacted. So thank you for your time. Questions?
We need a motion to receive and file, but as we're, Mr. Coleman, you want to do that?
Yes, I'll move to receive and file the packet distributed.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I just want to say, Deborah, I want to thank you and everybody that's working on this. Being a mayor that's one of the original signers on Mayors Against Illegal Guns and background checks and everything else, we need to help each other. This is an issue that needs to be looked at in our city, in our state, across this country, because people need to feel safe on the streets, in their homes. And the things that you pointed out, I think, would go some ways in doing that. Having military-style weaponry with projectiles moving 2,000 miles an hour is a bit excessive, and especially with clips that are 30 to 100 rounds, it really puts a lot of people in jeopardy, or could. And we think that Iowans are more sensible, but let's all work together to try to do it. And hopefully we'll work together up at the legislature and make some progress up there, and we can get back some local authority to be able to do some of this stuff.
Thank you very much.
Is somebody going to move to receive?
I'll move to receive and file her comments and the request. What?
7 yes.
All right. Item 38 is a request from John Busby to speak regarding founding an organization to help individuals stay off the streets by giving away guitars. John? I didn't see John.
I'd move to pick this up at the end of our agenda if John came,
Okay.
or suggest that.
All right.
Out of order later.
All right.
Why don't we move his comments, and if he comes in, we'll reopen. What do you think?
Perfect.
All right.
Move to receive and file a suggestion and
7 yes.
Item 39 is the contract with Motorola Solutions, Greg Brown, CEO, to provide a replacement public safety radio communication system for the city of Des Moines, $9,600,000 plus contingency costs, council communication number 18-470. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? We've had some extensive conversation and in session, in council meetings, and with our staff on this issue. Anyone? All right.
Mr. Mayor,
yeah.
I got a few comments before we go there. First of all,
But the item's been moved, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
city manager was going to get back to us with some Raycom costs in years 6 through 10. Is it even necessary?
They would not provide that.
Really? Good. Well, I want to applaud Dave Ness and the team from Motorola for taking this thing from $12 million down to 9,600. 9.6. Close enough for me.
Well, 9,600, be good.
But if you take a look at some of the things they did, selected a 2-site local enhancement rather than the more expensive 4-site proposal. That's great to see. Eliminated 50% of the test equipment included in the proposal. And, it's taking some of the shouldering more on our own staff rather than taxpayers paying for it. City staff at radio shop or fire maintenance and repair will remove and replace 30% of mobile radios from vehicles and program 70% of the portable radios. All these things are fantastic. We're doing, and we got this bid down to a point that I'm exceptionally happy with it. So hats off to Dave Ness, the police department, radio shop, and Motorola for putting something together that we can afford. So I support this 100%.
I'll also say, as we are voting, that I also support it, but I am somewhat concerned about the difference between the cost that Raycom presented and Motorola. I am also disappointed to Councilmember Gray's comment that they did not choose to provide us any updated information.
I think that tells us a lot.
On those costs, which probably means they really weren't sure what it might be at that point in time. But I thought that they were aggressive in their pricing, and but I stand convinced by our public safety, including fire
as well,
who worked so hard to try to make sure that our citizens and our public safety staff and others are protected, and they convinced me that unanimously on their part that they thought that this was the best solution, and I feel good about moving it forward, but I still wish that we could have sorted out some of those price issues. So,
7 yes.
Item 40 is a form of loan and disbursement with the Iowa Finance Authority, IFA, and authorizing and providing for the issuance and securing the payment of and providing for a method of payment of said notes and approving the form of tax exemption certificate for the following. Council Communication number 18-472. A is $6,093,000 sewer revenue capital loan note series 2018D. B is a $9,250,000 sewer revenue capital loan note series 2018E. C is a $6,093,000 stormwater management utility revenue capital loan note series 2018F subordinate. D is a $9,250,000 stormwater management utility revenue loan or capital loan notes series 2018G, again subordinate. Mr. Manager, this is a lot of money, but it's going to a really important issue that we're all dealing with in and around the city of Des Moines. So thanks for bringing this to us. Anybody in the audience, any comments?
I will move 40, A, B, C, and D. I will move 40. Can I move them all together?
Yeah, we already have the approval hearings on these, so putting them together is fine.
Great.
7
Call
yes.
putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. You think?
Talked a lot about it, but today's important.
Item 41, it's a item providing the MOVE DSM Transportation Master Plan plans connect downtown Des Moines, MOVE DSM. A is to receive and file communications from the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the Connect Downtown, MOVE DSM, and Complete Streets policy. B is to direct the city manager to work with the Des Moines Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO, to remove the southwest connector from Iowa Highway 28 to Park Avenue as part of the MPO's long-range transportation plan, and complete a traffic study to determine remaining future roadway networks needs in the southwest Des Moines area. Council Communication number 18-487. As was noted at the outset of the meeting, items 41C, D, and E were removed, and after a rather extended conversation and debate and sort of a request for more information, Mr. Manager, I think that we asked you to remove part of that, and if you could quickly touch on that for us so the public knows what we're going to go through here.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so after this morning's conversation, the decision was made to move forward with only 41A and B, which are the simpler actions to receive and file. And then on B, to direct that we work with the MPO, and you'll notice the amendment to that resolution is specifying that the section between Highway 28, that being 63rd Street, to Park Avenue is what is being removed at this point in time. As we get the traffic study analysis on the remaining portions, we'll bring that back at a later date to indicate what we would do with those segments. But at this point, this has been narrowed to be specific to the diagonal intent of the Southwest Connector that would be removed. We would bring back the other pieces to a work session that the public would be able to attend as well.
All right, we'll open it up, see if there's anybody in the audience has any comments to make on this. Seeing none, any comments by council members or a motion?
Well, I'll move 41A and 41B. This is a continuation. Well, one, the Southwest Connector as a project, and we'll have discussion on some of this, but this was going to be a large 4-lane street through a heart of our community. And one of the things that we're discussing in the broader Move DSM is the impacts of potentially overbuilding. And this would have been an example of that. But not only that, we now have higher and better use that we've identified and that will be allowed to move forward with this action. And that's part of what we talked about with the new Waldinger headquarters. And hopefully this is that's the first of many projects in this area that we are now opening up because of this action. So I'm happy to continue the discussion on the broader Move DSM, but I'm glad that we can move forward with this particular piece of it tonight.
All right. Voting's in progress.
7 yes.
Right, item 2 is authorizing the redesign of a neighborhood revitalization program, selecting 4 pilot areas for planning and revitalization work, and approving professional services agreement with CZB LLC. Council Communication number 18-490. Is there anyone in the audience to speak on this item? We'll ask you to step up to the microphone. It looks like we have a couple of speakers here. Is this, do we have 3, or are there some more that are intending on speaking? Looks like we have 3. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for listening to me tonight. It's a beautiful night out there, isn't it, huh? And where are we at? We're in here getting things done.
That's right.
My name is Jeff Whitty, and I live at, excuse me, 2501 Morton. There's a couple issues that I kind of need clarified on this. I got an email the other day from a lady, and I just wasn't clear on why we want to abolish the NRB And second of all, the money that they're spending on this, there's a lot of neighborhoods that don't meet, well, I should say, there should be minimum standards in a lot of these neighborhoods. Some of them don't have paved streets. They don't have storm drains. They don't have curbs. I was driving on East 33rd today, and that's one of the streets there, and that's a pretty busy street. And I'm not opposed to spending the money. I mean, if they need it, it needs it. But there's a lot of them, like Capitol Park, Capitol East, Fairgrounds, Gray's Woods. I mean, all these neighborhoods, I don't believe, probably if there was minimum standards, that they might meet this. Has there been any talk about a minimum standards for neighborhoods before money is directed out? Don't you think we need to get these neighborhoods, all the neighborhoods, up to an even keel and then build them from there? Does that make sense to you, or maybe not?
Mr. Manager, one thing that I would say, Jeff, and I appreciate your coming down, and because I know you and your neighborhood are always engaged in a lot of this stuff going on around, and to all of our neighborhood associations, we want them to stay engaged. NRB, I believe, by the way, and I'll refer to the manager, is not being abolished. And secondly, a lot of the work that we have talked about doing for many years, we're not talking about cutting that out. We're trying to think about what our strategy looks like moving forward, and trying something in each ward to see if there's strategies that work that we can then move out and use as models all across the city. And so I'll quickly put it over to the manager, who will give us a quick explanation of what's going on here.
Thank you, Mayor, and great questions, Jeff. Understand that what is in front of the council right now is a neighborhood revitalization program that is additive to what the city does in so many other ways. When you talk about minimum standards, this council is already committed to putting more resources into the streets, for instance, to get those up to a higher standard. More recently, more commitment towards stormwater, and we're talking tens of millions of dollars over the next couple of years. So it's a significant commitment on the part of the council. Just this morning, more conversation about the need for sidewalks. So yes, this council in other decisions have already raised the bar, if you will, on infrastructure throughout. This element in particular is aimed at making sure that any other gaps in services to our neighborhoods are being covered. And as the mayor very well stated, each neighborhood has a little different needs when you get past the streets, the sidewalks, and the storm sewers. And so we really need to have these small area plans working with the area neighborhoods to make sure that we're putting additional resources, and again, this is in addition to what we've ever done at the city, into these existing neighborhoods. Just as small sampling, for instance, when we have blighted property that needs to be removed, we end up with an empty lot. The small area plans, again, in coordination with the neighborhood leaders, will help us determine what to do with that empty lot. And again, it will be a different answer one neighborhood to the next. And so this has been guided by professionals that have done this in other communities throughout the country. We're taking their guidance and asking for them to assist moving forward as well. We will be working closely with the county and other partners, nonprofits, to make sure that all elements of neighborhood, including the school district, have a chance to raise the bar. And if we can make this work in these 4 pilot areas, and they've been chosen because of this, we think it's a good representation to then go out and roll out into the entire city.
Okay. So you do have minimum standards, I take. Can I get a copy of that? Will somebody send me a copy of the minimum standards?
And understand, they're individual. And so we have goals, minimum standards for streets. We have minimum standards for what our stormwater capacities are. So absolutely, I can share.
Well, but I mean, for different neighborhoods. I mean, for example, to make the neighborhoods more, I don't like using the word fair, but competitive or make them all pretty much the same, where one neighborhood isn't getting a lot of money for things that this neighborhood hasn't got, and they've already have. If you understand what I'm saying. I guess what I'm asking for is something that that everybody in here can look at and say, okay, Fairmont Park, for example, which I'm part of, okay, here's the standards all across the city of Des Moines. Okay, what doesn't Fairmount Park have that the standards need? You know, that don't meet the standards. And, or, like in Joe, in your area, I'm also president of Northeast Neighbors Incorporated, so the fairgrounds or Capitol East. I mean, you talk about blight, whoo, there's a lot of it there. It's all over the place. I'm not.
But that's not going away. We're still going to focus on removing the blight. With this program, our rental codes, which is a lot of the fairground area also.
I understand.
Our rental codes are going to be a lot stricter, so we can get rid of the bad actors and really bring up the property values. Because ultimately, you understand, we have to bring our property values up so we don't continue on raising everyone's levy rate here.
Yeah.
And we need to show that we can do a small targeted area, and each one of us, as ward council members, has a little piece of the pie that we feel like, let's partner with other folks, and let's try to do what we need to do and say what we're going to do and show those. Now, there's minimum standards everywhere, and it's different all over, not just the fairgrounds, but I have probably the largest diverse area that anyone represents other than the at-large council members and the mayor. I mean, mine is completely different anywhere you go in the city.
Right.
And so there's a lot of different now. I've heard the same arguments about the NRB. They're not going away. I've stated that to the person that's on there. They serve a role, or their role be maybe a little bit different, possibly, but they're still going to be.
So their board is still going to be there. So Mark is still going to be the chair, and so forth.
As far as I know, that was just a recommendation that we have not adopted that recommendation.
Okay, well, I mean, the email I got, it sounded like.
Who gave you the email?
It came from, I don't want to pull my phone out, but.
It doesn't matter.
Ashley somebody, I think is the name. So, and maybe I just misunderstood the email too. That can possibly be. So, do we need to have something set up where we can make, maybe through the NRB, have minimum standards where we have something to look at? I know you're saying that they're there, but we need something in order to build on.
Mr. Manager, maybe what we could do is send appropriate staff and or some council members out to have sort of a discussion with NRB. Let's go with Connie and then Chris.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I was on the committee with Bill, and really what this is to hire the consultants to give us the roadmap to do the work that we need to do and help raise the standards throughout the city. But we can't afford to do the whole city, so areas were picked that all have a different unique need. So it's not that anyone's going to be left out, because again, all the services, we're trying to ramp up, even taking more of the blighted property out. But they will help us determine the strategies and give us the tools that we need through financing and bringing public and private partnerships together, all the tools that they're aware of, that we can do this in a faster way. Because as Joe had said, we've got to bring our property values up. We've got to have these properties that are sitting empty for 7 years gone. That does not do anything for a neighborhood. So I think this is more hiring the consultants to give us the strategies and really move it forward in a more, probably in a faster way than we could do if we didn't have this contract that's before us. So it really is to raise the bar for everyone in a greater way.
Okay, so that $4.1 million isn't going to go to the neighborhoods, it's going all to consultants? Is that how I understand that?
No.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm
No, the consulting.
The answer is no.
We need you to ask those questions to make sure. Yeah,
because I'm confused a little bit. So.
No, that's with that, but also the consulting fee.
Two things.
Yes, sir.
I completely agree with you on the issue of baseline services. And when the last time I met with CZB,
yes,
Scott was there, somebody else was. We talked a lot about that, and I think part of this next phase has to be articulating what that is. You know, how many rental code inspectors do we have, you know, around the city based on the number of rental codes? How many police officers do we have on the street? What's the response to different areas of the city from the fire department? You know, there's many things that we catalog and benchmark for all parts of the city. And I think for this to be successful, we're going to have to ensure that we're not taking away from those. Or, you know, in your neighborhood, we're not going to let the response time of the fire department lag in order to generate money for something else. We have to maintain those basic level of services that we should have as a commitment. And I will say again, Jeff did here, that I'd like to see the consultants help us articulate that so that we know that people aren't giving things up. On the subject of tonight's thing, several people have already spoke to it. Here's the way I describe it. Every really good business that wants to be in best practices invest some of their money in R&D, research and development. You know, Waldinger was here today, and we got companies like Pioneer and Kemin that invest a ton of money, and that's why they're world-class leaders. And I think, to me, this is like the R&D money that the city can invest. It's a really small part of our budget overall, but it allows us to test best practices and to see if we can show you that these strategies will make a difference, and then we'll take them to your neighborhood and others.
Yeah, and I understand that R&D is very important, and you only want to put a very low percentage in R&D. But I wish tonight that you guys would vote no on this and maybe table this until we can come up with minimum standards, and with the neighborhoods that maybe look at some of these other neighborhoods that maybe could use it. I know you don't think this is a lot of money, but I'm telling you something. You go to Capital East and you say, hey, I'm going to give you $800,000 to this. This is like a Merry Christmas for them.
Yeah.
And that's what I would like to do tonight is say, hey, you know, how big of a push is this? Do we need to do this? I mean, immediately, if sooner, or can we back off a little bit and say, let's take another look at it. Let's look at all these other neighborhoods here. I mean, is this something? I mean, to me, it's pretty sensible. I know you guys have probably had meetings on top of meetings on this, but unfortunately, and I don't have to be part of them, but it just hit me kind of strangely on that. So, I mean, is that something that we could do? Could I make a motion to
Jeff, here's the deal. We looked at over 200 different areas, census tracts, to do it, and through help of neighbors in all the public meetings that this council has been part of, and I've been to most of them all myself as well. It is, Mr. Coleman and everybody else has articulated, it's sort of a strategy to see what can we do, how can we touch areas in each one of our 4 wards, and is it going to make a difference? Mm-hmm. And are we going to wait another 2-3 years to decide exactly, either through vote or some other way, on how to do it? That's why we hired these professionals to look at it, so we get sort of a diverse set of circumstances and neighborhoods, because we want to see if it works.
Well, sure.
And it's a strategy. It's you know, to use sports is that, you know, sometimes you make a play in the huddle and you think it's going to be a touchdown, but we don't want to, you know, go so far into it and think it's going to be a great success without any demonstration of it in working forward on it. And we're certainly going to continue to listen to NRB and all the neighborhood organizations on what's working, what's not in your neighborhoods as it is. Do we need to enforce stricter codes, inspections, other things? We're working on that as well, because we want all neighborhoods to be lifted up. And this is a small strategy that we're contemplating and working on, and going to see how we're going to move it forward. So I can't tell you how everybody's going to vote here tonight, but
I understand.
I understand your thought and recommendation that we should think about it some more. But,
sure.
So your comments are well noted and are on record.
Okay, well, that's all I can ask for at this point in time. But just keep in mind that some of these other neighborhoods, and like I say, I don't try to get into their business, but they bring it into our umbrella neighborhood, Northeast Neighbors Incorporated. So when they bring it to me, I do something. So please, look at these other neighborhoods. I mean, they're trying.
Absolutely.
They're trying. And also, I just want to say one thing. I want to thank Linda, and I want to thank, is Jennifer here? Did I see Jennifer come in? Jennifer McCoy. We had speed humps on East 25th Street installed last Thursday. And I'm telling you something, thank you very much. This thing is like, you talk about calming. Saturday night, I've lived in that neighborhood for 65 years, or not 65, since 1965. And I'll tell you, Saturday night, I was sitting out on my deck. I couldn't believe it. I thought, what in the heck? Where is everybody at?
Where'd they go, huh?
Well, they're not coming down, and you can take these speed bumps at 20 miles an hour. They're not speed stops. They're speed humps, and they drive and they stop at the stop sign too. Gee, thought, God, did everybody just learn how to read? So I want to thank all of you for voting for that.
Well, and Jeff, to you and your neighborhood and everybody working on that, because Linda, I know, worked on it hard, and so did some of the rest of us, because we want to listen to what your thoughts are, issues are, and public safety is a big issue for all of us. So I appreciate your staying engaged and your neighborhood association for all the work that you've done. So keep it up, man.
It's mutual. We thank you guys for all the work you do too.
Yep.
So thank you, and if, like I say, keep these other neighborhoods in thought, would you please?
We got a couple more speakers.
My name is Susan Wells. I live at 1157 14th Place. And my concern with this plan is that it hasn't addressed all of the neighborhoods. And I'm wondering, as you speak words like strategy, how long it will take before some of these other neighborhoods will see the benefits of this masterful plan. At the end of the day, there are several other neighborhoods that it seems to me that the first round, several of them have gotten already a bite at the apple, so to speak, with help and their infrastructure, this, that, and the other. What about the ones who haven't even been addressed, who, once again, are forgotten? So when I go to meetings, they say, oh, the city's not going to do anything to help us. This is what they talk about. This is what they mean. The city's not there to support them or help them in their needs in any way, shape, or form. And they're being overlooked yet again by the council and what the needs are, especially when you're doing things like distributing money to do an upgrade, so to speak, of areas that have been overlooked for years. When does it end? I'm not just looking at my individual neighborhood, but I'm looking at several neighborhoods in the 50314 area. I never knew that it was possible for some areas in that side of town to flood. Didn't know it until this past summer. Now that that's happened, when is that going to be resolved? How much longer are they going to have to wait till another more detrimental flood occurs, till something major happens? That's a question that some of us people are asked on a regular basis. Why is the blight going on in your neighborhood? What about this? What about that? It seems like the only time the blight is even remotely addressed is when it's covered up for the gentrification that goes around outside all of the area. It's a big concern with me. It's a big concern with other residents in those neighborhoods. And what is the big rush all of a sudden to do this? And why are the same neighborhoods being targeted repeatedly and the same neighborhoods being ignored repeatedly? That's my question. Thank you.
No, I appreciate your comments, and hopefully for your reference, if you missed it, item 40, we designated over $30 million to work on the flood and the sewer issues. So hopefully that's way more than we're talking about spending on this, because we see that as a priority, and we're trying to find ways to do even more moving forward. But I see what you mean. There were those that wondered why we were spending so much time planning and sending planners up into the Riverbend Neighborhood Association, who specifically is not part of this, but was getting a lot of assistance, public and private, to move the whole corridor forward, and then working, with a Y and trying to figure out the whole future of that whole area. And so, we have efforts moving forward, we hope, all over this city. And our council members, bring issues that citizens bring forward, and we want you to do the same thing, to let us know specifically, hey, this hasn't been dealt with, and if you've got a specific flood issue, for instance, up in your neighborhood, or if there's a park or there's something. I mean, we had citizens who were worried about restrooms in parks, and our council members brought some of those for the last 2 or 3 or 4 years when are we going to get it done? When are we get it done? We're slowly looking at those kinds of issues. And although I will tell you that we're not doing as many of those as we are working on sewer projects at the moment.
Sure. Be
That's,
careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
I got a whole list of people who talk to you about parks
No.
or
Listen,
anything else.
we got 75 of them, so
Yeah.
I want your input. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Honorable Council and Mayor, I'm Terry Wells, 1157 14th Place, Des Moines, Iowa. And I'm here to also ask that we slow this process down just a little bit. I believe that we should have some more meetings like the prior gentleman talked about. And to expand on it just a little bit more, every report that I've been involved in, the 2020 plan, the 2050 plan, the Tomorrow plan, the Capital Crossroads plan, and we can probably put another 5 plans with that. But they all say that if the core of the apple is rotten or flawed or not up to standards, then the rest of the apple also will end up bad. We have ignored what I call the 1-4. So I'm here tonight to talk about the 1-4. Not one neighborhood, a group of neighborhoods. And until we address the inner city, the core, the hood, the ghetto, the whatever term you'd like to use, these types of things, I feel, are out of place. We have picked 4 pilot areas that I believe have had 2, 3, 4 bites at the apple, while some people have had none. And I'm not saying you're not doing standards and guidelines across the board. You guys are doing a great job on the everyday, the evenness, but now we have a special project that we want to see what will work. And I think we need to start with those areas that have been least deprived, not already given some opportunities. And secondly, I think that in the past, I remember most of the times when the NRB would do something, the other side of that coin was Des Moines Neighbors. So where does Des Moines Neighbors stand on picking these 4 neighborhoods? Have we talked to that group? Have we considered their input? And so I'm just asking that we slow this down. I think it's great that we pick some areas in all the wards, and we do this incrementally, but I think it's important that we hedge our bets. Where do we have the most blighted houses? So where can we make the quickest and the best impact? Well, I believe in my journeys through the city that the blighted houses are mostly in the 1-4. Maybe part of the 1-3 or the 1-6, and et cetera. But we have an opportunity to really do some very quick impact with one of those pilot areas being more centrally located. Again, I go back to all the other studies, and they all say the urban cores are where we have to start. And so why can't we have a pilot area that, is specific to the poor people, to the areas of poverty, and to the areas of multicultural? Again, I'd like to see more inclusivity. So dial this back just a little bit. Get Des Moines Neighbors at the table, have the NRB at the table, have some of the community leaders at the table. Let's talk about, why certain neighborhoods should have priority. I really don't quite understand why we picked these 4 out of 54. And I'm almost to the point that I believe that we may need to cut down the number of neighborhood associations. You go to Chicago, which is 10 times as big as us, and I think they have 35 neighborhood associations. Maybe we should cut it back to maybe 10 or 12, which would make it more manageable when we pick out areas to do pilot programs, and it may give the people a little bit bigger voice. For example, in my neighborhood, I think there's only 300 households. But you go to Drake, and it's probably, what, 1,000 households? I don't know all those numbers, but some of our neighborhood associations are quite small, and I think we need to look at maybe not always just neighborhoods. Maybe we should look at zip codes. I like that you're looking at voting districts. I think that's important that, you know, each ward needs to have something going on in this project. So again, I'm just asking that we slow it down. We take a good long look at what other cities have done, what other programs, what other analysis have said, that the core has to be one of those places that you really are focused on. And to close this out, I think before you take this vote tonight, pretty soon we're going to be talking about a 1-cent sales tax. But I'm going to tell you right now, there was a group, Amos did a big thing yesterday. I'm sure some of you were there. I'm involved in some of this, and I know the feeling, and I know what the rumble in the jungle says. When we do that 1% sales tax increase, the 1-4, the inner city, is going to demand that we get our share of that tax money to improve our streets, to improve our services, because we've been ignored for 20 years. So we got to catch up. I think that's something you ought to consider. How do we catch up some of the neighborhoods that are in shambles instead of allowing some neighborhoods to have 2 or 3 chances to improve their communities? I want all of Des Moines to improve. There's some areas that we need to look at priority, and so take a pilot project and say, here's a priority: bad housing, bad streets, parks. We've had a plan at Good Park for 12 or 15 years. The plan's been written. We paid the service people to come up with it. We're not finishing the project out yet, while other parks are getting upgraded. So anyway, I just asked to slow it down. Let's continue it. Let's get some other people at the table, and let's work this out for what will be a very good project, and we can show folks how we improve our city.
Thanks, Terry.
Any questions?
That'll do it.
You're a good man.
All right. Let's, any discussion from the council table on where we're going with this project that we've been working on for the last couple of years?
Yeah, I just think it's important that people know that people were at the table and on the committee in all different areas. And there was somebody from NRB there, and, you know, the different agencies that go into the neighborhoods, Home Inc., NDC, NFC, a lot of people, and then city staff. And it really isn't to a specific neighborhood, because in some cases these areas overlap it could be 2 neighborhoods or 3 neighborhoods it touches. It was more on attractive where the housing was. It wasn't looking at one specific neighborhood, but where you could test and bring up the property value. And again, it's different scenarios for everyone, but not ignoring the rest of the city. I think that's important, that there's still things that need to be done that can stabilize, and strategies put in place, and ways to reorganize how we're doing the NRB and different things, and hopefully move everything along faster so that we can do the improvements that we need to do throughout all of this city. So, did we move this yet?
No, I would like to make a comment.
Please.
And I think everybody at the table has heard from me. I have been opposed to this plan since the first time I've seen it. We had a workshop on it Monday, and I talked about how probably my biggest objection is to the way the report is written. I really have a problem with CZB and the way that they wrote their report. And I'll just say it, and I said this to Scott last night, there's just an arrogance to this report that I just have an issue with. When I go to the people that I represent and show them this, and when I see things in the report, you know, like, well, we want it to be middle and upper income neighborhoods, that's never going to happen in in most of our city. So I have had a lot of anguish and a lot of heartburn about how it's written. So that's my first statement. My second statement is that I have been assured, and I have asked this question repeatedly, what are we not going to do for the other neighborhoods? And I have repeatedly been told everything will continue on. If somebody calls me with a complaint, I send it on to the city, and I've not ever had anybody not take care of the issue that I have brought to them, whether it's a bad house or a road or whatever. The city has been very responsive. And I have been assured, and Scott and I had a conversation last night, and it was nothing is being taken away. Nothing will change for our neighborhoods. Everything will be taken care of just like it has been. You know, we've just completed Viva East Bank, where we had private-public partnerships, and, you know, we put in millions of dollars into this neighborhood, and it has made a difference. We have the healthy homes, we have the Fuel Up First program. Those are still going to be there. We have developed great partnerships with private partners, and I don't feel that those are going to go away. I've never been told, hey, it's going to go away. So I share the concerns that you've had, but I honestly believe that it's not going to take away from any of our neighborhoods. We have these maps that we were given. I think that as a council, we've thought very carefully about where we want this to happen, and we're still a couple years away from it happening. You know, we need to get with our consultants and sit down with them and work out how it's going to impact. But it's going to take an investment on the homeowners that live in these neighborhoods. We have to get their buy-in, because in my concern, in Amber Lynch, who's the family planner, I got in her car and we drove around the neighborhoods and we looked at houses. And there are some beautiful homes in all of our neighborhoods. But where we have a beautiful home and then we might not have, you know, a home that might need a little love, we're going to be able to go to that homeowner and say, here are some things that you can do to dress up your home, or to be a good neighbor. We have an enhanced rental code enforcement. So if anybody has an issue with a neighbor that's a rental house that's not being cared for, we have the tools to put some enforcement. I am excited. One thing that I have learned, and one thing that I have changed my opinion about, has been the private property ordinance, that we need a maintenance ordinance for home ownership. And the more I talked to 2 people today that called me about issues, and I said, would you support something like this? And overwhelmingly, yes, I will do anything I can to get my neighborhood cleaned up. And I've been asking that for about the last 2 months, and I'm hearing that people do want that. And that's something that the 1-cent sales tax will go to in all of our neighborhoods. It's not going to be in just one neighborhood. It is for everyone. So I still have some heartburn. I think everybody is clear on what my opinion of the consultant. I just don't like the way it was written, but I do believe that it will be good for our neighborhood. In my ward, I think we've chosen a very good area. We're choosing an area where there's a lot of energy going on. I think it will be good. You know, another, one of the neighborhoods was over on the northeast side. We have a $17 million school being built in a neighborhood. $17 million. We've never seen a school like that before in Ward 2. So those are some good things. Grandview University in Ward 2 is a jewel to our community. And they are investing millions and millions of dollars into the area. So it's good that we have so many private partnerships that are stepping up. So that's what I wanted to share with everyone.
Want me to go or you want to go? Go ahead. I'll go. Linda, I appreciate your comments. And, you know, Terry, Jeff, I appreciate what you have to say. You know, you talk a lot about the core in the inner city, but I got to tell you, the worst blighted house is not in the core of the inner city. It's on the corner of Southwest 5th and Leach. That's out of the CDBG, where there's 3 other houses on one street that needs attention, that are boarded up in a beautiful neighborhood. So it's not just the core, you know, it's our city that we need a plan to take back our city and to build it up again. And that's what this is going to do. That's the data that CZB is going to give to us. And it's important that we listen to that, because the plan that we have been doing obviously isn't working. I've been sitting here talking about neighborhood revitalization for 4 years. It's not working, what we're doing. So we've got to try something different. And, you know, this group gave us really, really good data. And they're going to continue on doing this. These 4 small areas that we're going to target is going to show you, me, and everyone else that it can be done. And that's what this plan is going to do. And then we're going to continue out throughout the city. Hopefully we'll have an alternative revenue source from not just taxpayers in the city of Des Moines, from people that are coming in and using our services, that it could be spread out not just in the core, but everywhere else in the entire city that has blight, that our neighborhoods, that our streets need to be fixed, because it is everywhere. And that is what I'm excited about this plan, because what we've been doing is not working. And there's, obviously there's questions about it, and we're going to have to work through the details, and that's why we're having them come back and figure out how we get private, public money into doing this. Services in the other areas are still going to continue. They're not, it's not like we're going to say, okay, we're only going to pump money into these 4 areas and forget about everybody else. We would never do that. That would be silly. That's silly thoughts, that we could never do that as a city. I mean, we're going to find ourselves in big problems if we would ever talk about doing something like that. So that's not what this means. And so I think as far as whoever's messaging that message to, whether it be Des Moines neighbors or Northeast neighbors or whoever's telling you those things, is absolutely incorrect. That is not what this is doing. So you probably had some comments. I can move this if you want.
Connie, did you move it? Get ready to move it?
I thought well,
Connie's already moved it.
Oh, good.
I thought I did, but maybe
Perfect.
It's been a while.
Excellent.
The only thing I want to say, because I agree again with all that Joe said. I said a little bit ago it was research and development. It's our R&D. We're kind of creating a little lab there. I do want to continue to stress that in all those environments where people do it well, they constantly evaluate and they stop spending money on the things that aren't working. Mm-hmm. And, we're going to have to be willing to do that. And I hope, Scott, that you personally, your team, I know the council will, can get out and talk to the groups that feel like they haven't been part of this process to explain it. The honest truth is, people like the 3 that spoke to us today, probably know where a lot of the bodies are buried and can give us a lot of good insight on how to do this well and not make mistakes that have been made in the past. And so I'm ready to support this, but I think that we have to be prepared to change it often as we learn new things and to adjust it to meet the needs of the future.
Great comment.
Well, I'll just add one piece. I mean, I agree with a lot of what's been said. One of the things that I think we need to emphasize, this piece, and a lot of attention is given to the pilot piece. And we know that we have an overwhelming amount of need to strengthen our neighborhoods. I mean, in the report that we got, it identified up to $850 million in investment that we could make. We're never, even with alternative revenue sources, we're never going to have that $850 million. So we need to bite off and focus pieces in areas to have an impact, and that's what this pilot piece is about, is we're going to try the focused resources and see if we can do more and generate more. But then it's to Jeff's point, and I do think there are some of these things from a minimum standards that have always been talked about as part of this plan that maybe we're not doing a good enough job of talking about right now. But there are pieces that we need to emphasize everywhere, and that's where, it's the rental code enforcement that we need to do more of that. We need more rental code inspectors, and that's a piece that can be a part of this plan. We need to continue and look at the blitz on blight to take down those blighted properties everywhere, and that's designed to be a piece of this plan. Those are all things that we are talking about as a council. We need to do some things on affordable housing and inclusivity. You're absolutely right. And those are policies that we have talked about, and hopefully we'll be moving forward. I continue to think it's important that we do, from an equity perspective, that income non-discrimination when it comes to rentals. And I think that's a piece of and should be a part of this conversation as well. And so there are lots of different pieces. And I think in tandem, when we implement and start executing all of them, when we continue to learn from the things that we do at the beginning so that when we go on to the next step, we do it better and more effectively, over the long run, we will make a difference and will transform neighborhoods across this city, not just the 4 pilot areas. And we will make a difference in the quality of life for residents across the city, not just in a few blocks that might be targeted at any given time. And that's the goal. And I think this is going to set us along that trajectory.
Okay. We have a motion?
Connie's got it.
I'm sorry.
Connie moved
Did you
it.
have something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to make a quick comment. Connie and I were on the initial committee. This thing's over a year old. It's not anything we're rushing through here, but I like Linda's comment. I took a look at CZB as being brutally honest, not so much arrogant. I mean, they were telling us things I didn't want to hear. You mean to tell me that we've been mismanaging the way we've been doing things? And they said, yes. You're not getting the results you need to have done. So if you want everything done at once, Josh hit it right on the head. $850 million. We're never going to come up with that kind of money. But they said, and I watched as they moved around. These targeted areas kept moving from spot to spot to location to location. I actually didn't know what the final result was going to be. But the one thing that they did say, you don't take anything away from what you're doing in a lot of these other neighborhoods. You make sure that these people have their homes stabilized. You make sure that you don't take programs away from them to try and feed this. And that stuck with me very good. I kept looking at these things, and the one thing that old Charlie kind of got drilled in my head was, you can keep going with your shotgun approach and be where you are 5 years from now and be no different than where we are today. This is a chance to target an area. We've never done that before. Put a focus on it. And if we're successful, and I have all the confidence that we're going to get there, then take that and move it to other neighborhoods and start to get into the core, get into the meat of our neighborhoods and provide the kinds of services that we should be providing all the time. So like I said to Connie, this was quite an eye-opener from the start. I think they're on the right track to get this thing going, so that's why I'm going to support it.
Seven yes.
All right. It's a little past 5 o'clock. And we're going to start our hearings at 5:44. Our first hearing item is item 44, by the way, and it's rescinding the acceptance and approval of a proposal from Animal Rescue League of Iowa, Inc., ARL, rejecting all proposals and authorizing the city manager to negotiate a contract with ARL for the provision of animal shelter and animal control services. Council Communication number 18-475. A is a hearing on a contract with the Animal Rescue League of Iowa for the lease of the animal shelter services, and the city animal control services. Council Communication number 18-474. I'd also, with the permission of the council, we received some additional information from Furry Friends. And if somebody would, if I'll ask the attorney, is it appropriate that we can put that into the record at this time, that information, and maybe Mr. Coleman or somebody could move it?
I'll move to receive and file for the record the packet of information that was provided this morning.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. Let's go ahead and open the hearing again on ARL to accept and approve we're going to rescind the acceptance and approval and turn it over to the city manager to negotiate sort of an updated proposal. Hearing is open. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to come up at this time to make any comment about this contract? All right, we have one. So we have two people who are going to speak. Anybody that's going to speak, we'll ask you to come up at this time so we get sort of a sense here. Go ahead, give us your name and address.
My name is Deborah Peak. I live at 1808 Woodland Avenue, which some of you know is the Sherman Hill area. I've worked off and on as some of my neighbors with ARL, and I just want to say I've always found them tremendously helpful. Our area of the city is known as one of the hot spots for having mass quantities of feral cats. And I had a neighbor borrow a trap from them. She caught 18 cats. That wasn't all of them. I've worked with them. I've caught some ferals. If they're young enough, we turn them in. They take care of them. They go up for adoption. They've been a great resource for me to say, okay, this is what I'm looking at. Can you advise me? And I've always gotten great advice and good input. The services for taking a feral cat in, if you're doing returning and releasing, they were rabies vaccinated, they were spayed and neutered, they got their feline viruses, and at the time I did it, they were microchipped. So, and then I had their ears tipped. So if people see them in the area, they know that they're an animal that has been dealt with, they're non-reproductive, and they've just been wonderful supporting me. You do a temporary lease on the safe trap, and I just want to say that I know some people have had issues with ARL and some other things, but every time I've dealt with them, I've had a really good response from them, and I do support them in the business.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rita Mason, 2744 Arnold Road, Des Moines, Iowa. As you know, I'm part of an organization on the board that we provide better habitats for dogs in Des Moines and the greater area. This will be our 93rd build this weekend, where we take dogs that are chained up or severely confined, and we build a fence for them, and we work with the owners so that they can keep their dogs, and we try to address any issues they have. Because of that, lots of people, we get to know all the people in Des Moines, a good portion of them, and we also canvass the neighborhoods and try to find the dogs that are at risk. That being said, I want to talk, because I talk to a lot of people on the streets, the seizures is, and this is big in the animal community. A lot of them talk about it on social media, but nobody actually shows up here to talk about it. But the issue that we have is when owners are telling me that they're being threatened with arrest for the animal control officers to come in their house, or they take their dogs without any authority. Now, I'll tell you what, I'm familiar with federal seizures, and how it happens with federal seizures, we have to have a court order or a warrant in order to seize something. And then when we seize it like an animal, we have to have that animal in the same condition it was as we seized it. When we give it back, if we have to give it back like a racehorse, we don't just let it sit there and get fat and do nothing. We have to have it exercise and everything. So that brings me back to the dogs that are in long-term seizure, like these court cases that have been in the news. It's just, I just think that there should be some kind of policy to address them when they're in long-time confinement, because after 4 months, the experts tell me they're getting pretty mushy back there mentally, and what could have been a fine dog is going to be very difficult to rehabilitate. So I wish that some policy be drawn up. Plus, I don't understand the policy of never allowing an owner or its attorney to ever be able to see the dog, to know the condition of the dog, or to have a vet check it or anything like that. It's confusing to me, and maybe, ARL should not be the holding tank for these long-term things if they have it in a facility of their choice or something different. And I also have a question on the people with the lower socioeconomic, those people are the majority of the people that the dogs are seized from. And when they're threatened with jail time from the ACO, or they are, show up in court, they go to the initial appearance, the pretrial hearing, the trial, they have nobody representing them. So I want to know, is that due process when they cannot afford, and that they are not allowed to have a public defender because the attorney tells me at the city that it involves no jail time. So my question is, why are they threatened with jail time? And also, if they cannot afford a lawyer and don't have access to one, everyone that comes there is basically going to be guilty. And this happens all the time. And then in some of the cases, they are fined and they have to pay ARL. And when they pay ARL, they don't have the money, like an $800 fine because it's their third dog at large conviction. They attempt to garnish their wages, and the state says, no, you can't garnish their wages, they don't make enough money. But what happens is they put, for their renewal on their driver's license, they cannot renew their driver's license. So they cannot go work at Dollar General or wherever it is they're working or anything. And then they get further in trouble. It's just a vicious cycle, and they're not represented at all. And I just wish there would be some kind of a mediator or something that can handle these cases instead of just making it impossible for them. Plus, the last thing I want to address real quickly is the arbitrary handling of how dogs are decided to be dangerous and put to sleep. Because I have lots of people and lots of different stories. When I encourage them to come here, they don't want to show up or have their name done because they fear they will be harassed. But I do want to show you this that happened on April 9th when a child, a 3-year-old child, was bitten. The dog was taken in for 10 days and returned to the owner. It was a black lab. And I got extra pictures here. I want to put that to record on here. And I just want fairness, and it's not happening. It's not happening.
Okay, Rita, I think that you have quite a long list of things, but generally they're associated with legal issues, and I think I'd like to refer you to our city legal department, and maybe we can sit down and go through some of these issues with you and see if there's some ways to address it.
Okay.
I'm not sure that those are part and parcel to the agreement with Animal Rescue League that we're talking about tonight, but certainly they're important issues and they should be addressed. And so with your permission, I would ask City Legal to, if somebody would get her phone number, and let's get in touch with her and see if we can't.
And can I submit these for
Yeah.
file?
Chris, do you want to take her?
Thank you very much. I'll move to receive and file. These are photos.
God bless.
Yes, your name?
Ready? My name is Camille Mann. I live at 2728 62nd Street. I've lived in Des Moines for about 13 years, and during this time I've had many animals. I have my husband and my 2 boys. The direction Des Moines takes regarding animal control and the animal ordinance is something I follow pretty closely and I'm pretty passionate about. I only have 2 quick things, so I'm not going to take much of your time. First, I want to say I was thrilled that removing breed-specific language from the city's ordinance was brought up at the workshop this morning. For the past 10 years, I've been advocating for this antiquated ordinance to be updated. I want myself, my kids, and my pets to be protected from all dogs who act dangerously, not just dogs who are labeled as a pit bull based on their appearance. The trend for cities across the nation continues to be to remove or repeal breed ordinances in favor of stronger ordinances for all dogs. There's a lot more that can be done to protect people and pets from horrible dog bites, and I look forward to what the city of Des Moines is going to do about that. One last thing. I do support the city staff's recommendation for the 10-year Animal Control Services contract to be awarded to the ARL. I'm impressed with the ARL's resources to rescue and rehabilitate animals in need, their professionalism and unmatched staff experience needed to make tough decisions when nothing else can be done, and their determination to work with the rescue partners in Iowa across the country to find live outcomes for animals when it's in the best interest of the animal and public safety. I'm excited for how far we've come since the beginning of this partnership in 2005, and with the renewal of this agreement, I'm excited for what's still ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no one else, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Any discussion?
Mayor, I have a quick thing to say.
Yeah, please.
I think I've said this at each step of this process and in consulting with Jeff Lester, our attorney. I don't have a conflict tonight, but I do, in the interest of full disclosure, want to say that I work for the Better Business Bureau. We have 4,000 members in Iowa. One of them is the ARL. Nobody has ever suggested that creates a conflict, but the ARL has been a leader in our organization and other community organizations for a long time, including Tom Colvin, and I just wanted to put that on the record so you knew I didn't have anything to hide.
Mr. Mayor, I think we've had discussion. I think we came a long way since this was first brought to us, and we can see, there wasn't very many speakers up here that had references to this contract. And hats off to the staff, to you, Scott, and to ARL for meeting some of the needs that we needed to do to get this over the finish line. And so I thank you for that. I'm looking forward to seeing a new facility, and I would be happy to move 44 and 44A.
The community's lucky to have a lot of organizations here today that do good work. But you know, from my perspective, ARL and your team do an outstanding job, and I hope you show our appreciation to your board and your staff. It's not easy work they do on our streets and in our backyards and 24/7, and your role is important. And I think the mayor and I are the only ones around long enough to know the history of this. Not only is it done better than it ever has been before, but we're also saving hundreds of thousands of dollars from the initial contract and agreement. And that's allowed us to provide a higher level of service than we were able to before. So hats off to the board and to the staff of ARL.
Great comments.
And I might also add to that I want to thank ARL and all the other partners that are out there that have stepped up and are willing to take a piece of some of the actions that are necessary to continue to raise our level of healthy release and hopefully not have to go to euthanasia for animals, especially those that can be saved and be moved on. So thanks to some of our other partners that are sitting in the room, and let's continue to work forward and make it better. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll add one thing. My hope is that in my time on the council that we'll constantly have improvement. And I think this process to date marks some pretty significant improvement. I'm not going to be satisfied with this improvement. I think we need to continue improving. And I think hopefully in the next month we'll have some actions that will represent more improvement when a trap, neuter, release policy comes to the council. And I'm willing to continue entertaining other policies. I hope the ARL and our other partners will continue to push us to innovate and to provide better service, because I think when we do that, everyone comes out the better for it, and we're on that path right now, and I hope we continue along that path because our citizens deserve it.
All right, we've got a motion.
7 yes.
All right, item 45, on a vacation. Thank you all for coming down. Item 45, on a vacation of a portion of West Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway right-of-way adjoining Lot 1, Gray Station, Plat 1, and conveyance of a permanent easement for building encroachment and a permanent easement for airspace above city-owned property to HRC NFS 1 LLC for $7,500. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above. Open the hearing. Is there anybody here to speak to this item?
Seeing no one, I'll move item 45A, and I'll move to waive the second and third reading as well.
Seven yes.
Item 46, on approval of documents for conveyance of a permanent easement of city-owned property adjoining 3764 Hubble Avenue to 2 Key LLC for the Hubble Avenue improvements, East 33rd Street to East 38th Street project. Open the hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? All right, seeing none, let's close the hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move item 46.
Item 46 been moved.
It's
Mr. Coleman?
Sorry.
7 yes.
Item 47, dismissing a hearing on a request from NJC Properties LLC, represented by Nick Chudlak, officer to rezone 2525 McKinley Avenue from M3 Limited Industrial to C2 General Retail and Highway-oriented Commercial to allow single-family residential development of the property. Open the hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item?
Seeing none, I'll move item 47. I do want to know, I think the rest of the council, we sort of went through a process on this one in the hopes of what I think would have helped head off an issue. I'm worried that we're going to come back with that and hopefully not end up with an outcome that the neighborhood is trying to avoid storage units in this parcel, which by right under current zoning they have, and appreciate the rest of council's efforts to try and help head that off, and we'll see how that comes out.
It's amazing that it's surrounded by lots of residential, and we went ahead and put it in our comprehensive plan DSM as M3.
Well, and an airport.
Yeah.
Item 48, items regarding 100 Watrous Avenue. A, amending the existing Plan DSM, creating our tomorrow planned future land use designation from low-density residential to neighborhood mixed use. B, is a hearing on a request from Get and Go convenience stores to rezone the property from R170, one-family residential, to limited C1 neighborhood retail commercial to allow the redevelopment of the property with a new gas station convenience store with 6 fueling locations subject to conditions. Let's open the hearing on 48 in A and B. Project at 100 Watrous Avenue. Anyone here to speak on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I think the applicant's here. I have a quick question, and is there a site plan for this? I've never seen anything. Do you have something that you can at least show me what it's going to look like? Because I know some of the concerns were from the neighbors that I had.
Yes, good day, Council and Mayor. We do not have a site plan. We have Bishop working on pre-app right now. We had a rough drawing visual that I could introduce, but it's not a site plan per se. But I have a concept plan.
Okay.
If you'd like, that we could introduce that Bishop has done for us for our neighborhood meetings.
Will it go through the process after we do this to P&Z and then back to us through a site plan review process, Larry?
Yeah, a condition stated in the ordinance, which the applicants agreed to, that will go, site plan will go to P&Z and go through that normal process.
Okay.
But then will it come back to us?
Only in the event of, if it's not approved and the owner decides to appeal, then it could.
Okay, so
So P&Z, if they approve it, then it does not come back to us.
we'll come back there.
Interesting.
Any other questions?
None. None for me, I'm sorry.
Would you like me to introduce that?
Yeah, can I see? Yeah, if you have a rough sketch. I haven't seen anything.
All right, and as he's getting that, item C on that is a first consideration of that ordinance, and D is a final consideration of the ordinance, and the waivers requested by Get and Go convenience stores and requires 6 votes.
I mean, I guess I'm still relatively new at sitting here. I guess I don't still understand the process that we go through sometimes. Sometimes usually it goes to P&Z and then we have final approval, but something like this, I guess I don't understand how that works.
I think this is just a rezoning, and so.
Well, how do the neighbors know that they want it rezoned if we don't have a plan to show them how it's going to sit there? You know, where the lights are going to be and where.
I don't disagree with you. I think it should go through the process and end up here.
And I'm not saying that I'm against this in any way. I think that store, my uncle 45 years ago used to have Benny Superette there.
Yes.
So I'm very, very familiar with it, and it needs updated, and it needs probably to be bigger and to be able to get gas. And you have a lot of land there, but I would really, really be a lot more comfortable rezoning it if I knew exactly where it was going to be sitting on there. I know you had a neighborhood meeting. I don't know how many attended. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend that neighborhood meeting. I was out of town. I just, I'm not saying I'm against it in any way, but I don't understand why it wouldn't go through the process to where if there is a problem that we as a council, which is our role as an elected officials, would be able to say, okay, you need to maybe change this.
Dennis Flora, Get and Go Stores, 2716 Indianola Avenue. You know, to answer a couple of questions there. At the neighborhood meetings, we had drawings for them, and there's always a couple that had questions, but I've been there 41 years at that location, and you know, it's time for a change. I just purchased the property 2 years ago from the Lafritos.
I know you did.
And so it gave us a chance then to redevelop it. And but it just sits too close to the street. If you have a vendor coming in and cars pulling to get some gas, people walking, it's just too congested. What we want to do is just build a new store behind the current one, and then, you know, take down the old store. And, you know, we have 4 fueling stations down. We're just going to add 2. And
Yeah, no, I understand, and like I said, we're going to go ahead and approve it, and then we're never going to see it again, and I guess that just.
Yeah.
Would you say behind it, further,
it's going to
further
sit back
south
further.
or further west?
It'd be just kind of at an angle further south.
Yeah, it sits back further to the southwest.
You know, it gives everybody plenty of room and just.
Because right now, it's right up on the street.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's right there.
Oh, okay. I see.
Well, I mean, still, even if we approve it, it still doesn't, I mean, the final, it doesn't really matter. I mean, so tell me options, Larry, any, 0?
Well, I think I was sitting in on one council meeting where I believe we changed the condition to actually provide for city council review of the site plan. But this would require, we couldn't act on this because then the owner would have to agree, and then we'd have to incorporate that in the written acceptance before the closing of the hearing.
Right.
So that's a potential option if the owner is agreeable to site plan.
When are you going to start, I mean, when would you start this build?
You know, it kind of depends on the weather, but we would go ahead with Bishop Engineering and get our grading, and there's a lot of dirt yet to be brought in.
Sure, that's what I was thinking. So if we delayed this 2 weeks, would you be in agreement that this would go back through a process to where it goes to planning and zoning, which you're going to have to go through anyway with the site plan, and then ultimately you would come back in front of us with that site plan, and obviously if everyone's in agreement, then it's not going to be a problem. But I would feel a lot more comfortable if we had that just safety valve in there, just in case some things just don't act real well, and some of the neighbors are going to get real upset about lighting or just, I don't know. I think this looks great.
You know, yeah, we didn't have too much, negative. Of course, everybody understands how much safer it's going to be.
Yeah, no, I agree.
We gave the diagram or the site plan to plan and zoning. And
Did you have a building plan too that went with that? Did you show them what it was going to look like?
showed them just what really,
Yep.
I think.
An elevation.
What material?
And the only reason I bring this up is I remember a number of years ago when there was, the Planning and Zoning Commission was slightly different, but the chair would appear here, and if there was some concern on the part of the city council, then they'd send it back to P&Z, and then it'd come back here. So the council always had final say, but if they had concerns, they'd send it back, and they'd work it out with the developer, and everything would be great. I think that there was some thought in time that that could be just administratively worked out and wouldn't have to go back through the processes. Now, rarely did it go back to P&Z, but the option was there when there were real legitimate concerns. And so it gave the citizens, with the input of the council, who serve on the commission, to then weigh those concerns and then bring back maybe a slightly better plan.
You know, plan and zoning, I mean, we gave that plan showing the building and everything, and, they were all for it. We got a 9-0 vote, I think.
Okay.
But you'll still have to go through a site plan approval from the P&Z. And the only thing that I'm asking is, once you go through that process, I would ask that you come one more step, and it would just come back to us, and we can take a look at it. I'm sure that you'll have approval from P&Z. I would feel comfortable.
Sure.
Is there a middle ground here where the council doesn't retain a voting, but we ask for it to come to the council for a presentation before it goes to P&Z? then we at least have the ability to ask P&Z to, maybe that's not as good as the idea of just waiting, but.
Yeah, we had to lay this out with staff. Eric Lundy did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
People care about the lighting and
Part of what
materials.
Council Member Gatto is saying is that it would be helpful, and I'll say this to staff, that if that whole thing would have come here and we would have seen the plan and the design, otherwise we're just looking at
That's what I
a bunch
that's
of
what I
words
was looking
here.
for.
I didn't realize that didn't come through you.
Yeah, no, I
all
haven't
the
seen
drawing.
anything. I haven't seen one, this is the first time I've ever seen this drawing here.
Oh,
I didn't think it was, maybe I
guess we
missed
took that
it.
for granted that it.
Maybe I missed it in
goes
the
to the next
packet.
part.
It wasn't in there.
Well, I've asked Phil to come forward because we really need to understand what is the normal process, which would not have site plans coming back.
Okay.
Once they have the right zoning.
Mayor and Council, Phil Delafield,
But I have to rezone
Assistant
it first.
City Manager and formerly of Community Development Department. Prior to your tenancy on the council, Joe, the prior city councils heavily reviewed the site plan regulations because there were so many of them coming through the processes. So city council approved the standards at that time and delegated their authority to the Plan and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
So the standards had been heavily reviewed at that point, and that's why you no longer have that coming forward to you. If council desires that they have the review, it has to be agreed to in writing, as council has advised you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I didn't.
Mayor, you may recall those meetings from your tenancy there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
Thank you.
If you're in agreement, maybe we can just do this. I would ask that it does come back to us. So this hearing would be postponed until the next council meeting?
Yeah, you need to.
And then we would have the same thing, and it would say that it would go through the
Right.
process again?
What we do is we continue the hearing, and then we would then get the developer to sign a new conditional
Right.
zoning, which would have the city council review the site plan.
Right.
And we could have that done, especially if you're in agreement, that there should be no problem getting that done for the next.
And you wouldn't have to come back in 2 weeks for that. I'm hoping that we would approve that. I think everyone here would probably approve that. And then after it went through the process, which you're going to have to go through anyway,
Yes.
P&Z, then it would come back and we can take a look at it as mayor and council here and just make sure that we're comfortable with it.
I guess that's the confusing part, going
Yeah.
through P&Z when they've already seen it once.
Yeah, the whole thing is pretty
That's
confusing.
that's the difference between zoning and site plan.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
It's because we have to
But it
rezone
sounds
the
like
property.
he presented a site plan with elevations and everything. Is that right?
Yes, I
But
mean,
he did not seek out site plan approval at that point.
Yeah, but
It was just a zoning.
We could, probably at some point, we should have a further flesh out of this because,
Thank you.
you know, when we're having limited with C2 and then a staff review, one would think that since he's already made the full presentation,
Right.
that we would at least see it and be aware of what that is, as opposed to going back and say, well, we rezoned it, we don't know what's going to happen. But
Or we have minimum expectation. I mean, I get that sometimes somebody doesn't want to invest in all the cost until they know it's going to be rezoned. But in this case, you build these a lot, and you kind of know what you're in for.
That's what I think.
And
That's why I was so surprised that I've just never seen this.
yeah, I am
before.
too, because I just thought it followed the trail and came to you guys.
Unfortunately, it didn't. So
Okay, so you got a motion that
I
is going to
would-
be to
I would like to continue the hearing, and I believe the applicant's in agreement to put that stipulation in there.
Yes.
That we would come back. The next council meeting, we'll finish the hearing. You don't need to come the next council meeting and sit through this.
Yeah.
We'll approve it. You get your site plan. You get everything ready to go.
And you need that before.
You
the next-
go through P&Z with the site plan. It'll come to us 2 weeks later, and we'll finalize it, and you can build your store.
Okay, good, perfect.
All right?
Appreciate it.
So I'll make that motion. Is that?
Well, but that makes him go through a couple more. I'd like when he comes in here that everything's already been reviewed and it's okay and the site plan is ready to go.
Well, yeah, but he has to go through P&Z though, right?
Well,
Mr. Mayor?
Phil, when's your next P and Z meeting?
Oh, you meant continue the hearing?
Come on, let's get it all done.
Yeah,
You didn't need to come back
I
2 more
agree.
times.
Okay.
Yeah, the P and Z would want,
They should do it all at once.
I agree.
You don't just do it, helter-skelter and say, oh, we're going to rezone C2.
Well, that's what I
They can
didn't
build whatever they
understand
want.
about this
You've
whole
got
process
stipulations
here.
around what it is that you're going to allow them to build, right? Otherwise, you get C2, they could build a monster and nobody would see it.
Well, we put.
Now, they asked me to reduce that to C1, which I did. I put it in.
No, I know. I mean,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, this is something that, so can we do it all at once? Mr. Manager or Mr. Delafield?
we don't want to make it hard for him or anybody else.
We can,
We realize that we're making it hard, but,
yeah, I apologize. I am kind of hard.
The next P and Z that we could get them on the agenda would be the 18th, I believe. I don't have my calendar here with that exactly, but I believe that to be the 18th.
But ordinarily, it's a two-step process.
Ordinarily, it's a two-step process because the council had authorized those standards.
You don't see the second step often.
Yeah.
If you want to.
It's an administrative process.
okay.
I'm just saying. Bill's proposal will get that done, though.
Okay.
Well,
Just
what do you want my motion to be? I
You
guess.
had it
I
right.
want to
You
see
had it
the
right.
final, I want to see the final approval of what P and Z. That's all I want, and I don't want this poor man to have to go through 5 different steps to get it done. So tell me what you want my motion to be to make that the easiest, and I will make that motion. Maybe before or after I drink another Red Bull.
Okay.
Before.
Before.
I believe you already made the motion to continue, and
Yes.
then that we work to revise the conditional zoning to include city council review. That's the way that you actually assure that you will see it.
Okay, great.
So,
Then that, and that, is that,
That's your motion.
that's my motion. Let's vote. Thank you.
I'm 100% for it, whatever it is.
I am too.
Zoning.
Okay, let's move right along.
7 yes.
Item 49, on a request from Indigo Dawn LLC to rezone property at 1345 7th Street from R160, one-family low-density residential, to limited R2, two-family residential, to allow the conversion of an existing vacant building to a two-family dwelling, subject to conditions. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above, and B is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by Indigo Dawn LLC and requires 6 votes. Is there anyone in the audience to come forward that would like to say anything about this? Seeing none, let's go ahead and close the hearing.
Mayor, talked with the Riverbend Neighborhood Association. They're in agreement that this is best for the neighborhood, so I'm going to move 49, A and B.
Seven yes.
Item 50, on Tower and Sheridan Park restrooms, resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, designating lowest responsible bidder as Trinity Construction Group LLC, Jackie Good, Vice President, $443,084. Council Communication Number 18-489A as the approval of the contract and the bond, and a permission to sublet. Let's open the hearing and see if there's anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to this item, item 50, which is restrooms at Tower and Sheridan Parks.
Mayor?
Seeing none?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Before you make your motion. The Sheridan Gardens is in Ward 2, but, so I just wanted to say, they're putting in the water line, and I've had conversations with Public Works. The water is, I'm just asking, could someone from the city talk to the contractor to see if they can just move their pile of rocks to the side so we can open up one lane of traffic. We've had the entire street closed for a long time, and I'm getting lots of calls saying, it seems silly that we can't just drive on one side of the street. So that's my comment.
Other than that, you're supporting it.
I support it 100%.
And Linda, let me add, we have a friendly neighbor that puts concrete blocks in the driveway and the parking lot. Nobody can get to go to Tower Park anymore, so just thought I'd add.
Well, the restrooms look wonderful. I've seen pictures of them, and they do look wonderful. So
Well-
it is a real addition to our neighborhoods.
It's been a long passion of mine. I had nothing to do with these two. I mean, they've each gone through a park renovation, so I didn't select them. But I will tell you, Tower Park is right up the street from my house. My kids have been there a million times. That's where they played soccer and had their games. And actually, Sheridan Park is where this whole thing started. One of my older kids worked this summer at Sheridan Park. And I think I've told many of you this privately. She worked at Sheridan Park. The Kaibos would get tipped over almost every night. So my mom, my wife, in the middle of the day would drive to Sheridan Park to let her leave to go to the bathroom somewhere and come back. That was our employee. And things like that happen all over the city. We can't have this kind of situation. And when we're investing millions in water features and others, we need to plan for a restroom at the same time. This is a little catch-up, and it's a little bit more money than I ever thought that it should be. But between building plans and bidding, we've tried it twice, so I'm all for it, and we'll move it. We're spending almost $1 million on restrooms in established neighborhoods, and this is part of revitalizing and making those neighborhoods strong and vibrant. And even though we don't like to compare ourselves, as Linda, groused about earlier, I'm with you. It is allowing our neighborhoods to catch up to kind of minimum standards, and I hope that we keep doing it. And I would point out that Diane made the paper today. I think the story went up about the time we were starting, but we're on our way of collecting maybe $1 million from past due parking tickets because of her and her staff's effort. So as the paper said, we have a little bit of money now to pay for the new restrooms at places. So thank you and your team. So I'll move this, and I'm really happy that we're starting to move forward.
7 yes.
Item 51 on Columbus Park Shelter renovation, a resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate designating the lowest responsible bidder as Edge Commercial LLC, Jason Soretti, partner, $607,499, council communication number 18-483. A, under that is approving the contract and the bond and permission to sublet. Let's open the hearing on this item for Columbus Park. Anyone here on this one? Seeing none, let's close the hearing. Joe?
Yep, Mr. Mayor, just real quick, this shelter was constructed in 1931. I'm sure everybody read the blue letter. In 2015, there was a bulldozer sitting out in front of it, and Monsignor Chido called me and was like, what's going on? And it was so outdated. I just remember going to St. Anthony's and, being able to use that shelter, and we always had our picnics there and things like that, but it's been so outdated, it's been closed for many, many years. And we have a Kaibo that sits out there, and one of the biggest probably splash pads in the city that is well used. And so this gives an opportunity to have outside and inside bathrooms and a place that people can rent and have their family reunion and things like that there. So I know this came back a little bit more than what we expected, but this is something really good that's happened. It's taken a while. It's taken 3 years to get it to where we need to go. But I will happily move 51 and 51A. This will be really good for the neighborhoods. And it is part of neighborhood revitalization.
And a part of our past.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will add the other ones of these that we've done have turned out really well.
Yeah.
And, my family goes to this park, and it's great. You see people using all the amenities at once. Kids playing in the spray ground, people on the basketball court, people in the fields, people at the picnic tables. I mean, it's a well-used park and exactly what a city park should be, and this will add to that.
And it's fitting that it's Italian Heritage Month.
That's
that
exactly right.
This is finally getting approved then. This is for years and years. They had the Italian festival there, and it's very successful, so.
You'll move it, I bet.
Well, I don't think it's big enough anymore.
Seven yes.
Item 52, on a fallen officer memorial, resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate designating the lowest responsible bidder as GTG Construction LLC, Tracy D. Grasso, managing partner, $101,529.15. Council communication number 18-482A is approving the contract and the bond and permission to sublet. We'll open the hearing and ask if there's anyone here. This is going to go out near the police station, I understand. Anybody from the police station want to talk about this for a second?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, members of the council, Dana Wingert, Chief of Police. Decided to give Captain Ness a little break. He had a couple other big items on the agenda tonight, and he, as always, he did a fantastic job. Yeah, Mayor, so this will be located on the front steps of the police station just to the south of the newly remodeled front steps. The other side of those steps has two oak trees that you planted way back in the day. We're trying to keep them alive and keep them pruned, but they look good. The other side is basically just vacant grass at this point, and it spills into a Detective Bureau parking lot. So this was a community-driven project. They came to us. They wanted a place where not only our employees, but members of the public could come and reflect, honor those who have given the ultimate sacrifice, but also honor those who continue to serve. So it'll be a park-like setting, a patio-type structure right there in the front. Be a beautiful addition to our 100-year-old police station. So a lot of community support, a lot of donations, private contractors, just totally humbling and flattering on our end, but we're very, very much looking forward to this addition to our building.
Thanks for making that impromptu presentation, but this is an important piece, and I appreciate you doing it.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I will happily move 52 and 52A. I would say it's the least we can do for the folks that serve every day and the folks that have lost their lives.
And I'll add the 15 cents since I know they needed it so bad.
You got it. You brought it with you.
You got the 50.
Chief, would you collect it?
Put it in the cup, Bill.
I haven't seen the money yet, but I'm sure it's coming.
Put it in the cup.
All right, that completes the hearings and takes us back to item 41. And
43.
43, I'm sorry, but let's note that it's 6:31 that we ended our hearings. Item 43 is a coordination with the Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, to distribute a request for proposals, RFP, for the rail port transloading facility and directing the city manager to solicit additional proposals. Council communication number 18-478. Is there anyone in the audience here to speak to this item?
Mayor, members of the council, Todd Ashby from the Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. We just appreciate the city's support on this project as we look forward to selecting a new operator and moving this project forward. Thanks. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Todd? Todd, thank you.
Just a point of clarification. Last week, the MPO met. Did we sever the relationship at the MPO end as well?
Last month, with the special meeting of the executive council, we severed that. That's already taken place.
And we have at the city.
We have sent letter
portion of it
to
also.
send as well.
Okay. I will, Todd, thank you. We appreciate the help of the MPO. This is something regionally that hopefully we can get some great proposals and really get this off the ground and make it work. So I will move 43.
Seven yes.
To my knowledge, I believe that completes our agenda for this evening. I want to thank you all for attending, and without further ado, let's declare this meeting
No
adjourned.
guitars? We're not going to talk about guitars, are we?
Anybody, is Busby back? Is Busby here?
No.
He's not. Maybe come next time. All right, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
I can't believe that.